In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Good day, everyone. Nestor Licanto here with another edition of In Full Zoom. And this week, we're going to talk about a pretty landmark announcement by our hometown airline, United Airlines. They have pledged to go green by 2050, 100% green by 2050. And we have a special guest from their corporate headquarters to explain that for us. And we also have Sam Shinohara, the Managing Director of Airport Operations for Asia Pacific, a familiar face for us here in Guam. And I'd like to also introduce Ms. Lauren Riley. She is the Managing Director of the Global Environment Affairs and Sustainability for United Airlines. Thank you both for joining us.
Hi, Nestor. It's great to be here.
Before we get into the meat of the discussion, which will be with you, Lauren, I'd like to just commend United Airlines on a couple of things. Sam, you, of course, have United Airlines has played a big role here in our fight against the pandemic. You brought in over 80 frontline medical professionals to the cavalry, so to speak, to help out with the very beleaguered staff at the GMH and Public Health. And also just this week, the first vaccines for Guam, a lot of excitement over it, was brought in by a United Airlines flight just earlier this week. So if you could say a few words about that, Sam.
Hey, sure, Nestor. We'll start with the nurse professionals. And so, I think the stat's a couple days old now. We're up to just over 100 professionals that we've transported into Guam to help the GMH, and certainly it's much needed help. And I think things are all heading in the right trajectory, right? Our infection rates are coming down, the hospitalization rates are going down, and happily we're I think we're on the path to turning the corner here, right? And so the arrival of the vaccine, I think is a super amazing feat for not just Guam, but for the entire world. And United is super proud to partake in the transportation. And so we're the first passenger airline to be able to facilitate vaccine movement. We've done a lot of planning to make it happen, Nestor. And as I told other folks before, that if we just started when the vaccine was approved, trying to figure out how we were going to manage the logistics of moving such precious cargo, it would be super challenging, and quite frankly, we wouldn't have it on the property and ready for injection into the community's arms, if you will, in the next couple of days. And so we're really excited about that. Very proud of the achievement, and looking forward to further transportation of additional vaccines for the community.
Yeah, kudos to United Airlines for that, because it's certainly generated a lot of excitement in the community. And we see it kind of as the beginning of the end of this pandemic. This year we all want to forget, but we'll not be able to. Thank you very much, Sam. Let me just move on to Lauren. As we mentioned, United made that bold environmental commitment and pledged to go 100% green by reducing greenhouse gas emissions 100% by 2050. Tell us what that means.
Yes, and thank you, Nestor, for having me today. I think this is such an important discussion, and I'm thrilled to be joining you and talking about this. So United pledged 100% green by 2050, and what that does mean is that we're committing to taking all of the greenhouse gases that we emit into the atmosphere out by the year 2050. So we'll be carbon neutral. And why that's really important is that we recognize that today, we fly airplanes, and that contributes to climate change. We're emitting greenhouse gases today. So we have a responsibility to really step in and facilitate a solution that's permanent and long-term to take all of those greenhouse gas emissions out of the atmosphere. What's different about United's approach to this from other airlines that have pledged net zero is that we're going to do it without relying on carbon offsets. And carbon offsets essentially mean that you are paying to fund a program outside of your operations that pull those carbon emissions, those greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere, but you continue to do your status quo and maintain your operations as they were before. We just decided, United Airlines didn't think that was genuine, didn't think that was authentic in really wanting to decarbonize your operations. So we decided, under the direction of our new CEO who stepped in May, Scott Kirby, that we're going to do it without relying on carbon offsets. And I'm thrilled to share that what that means for us is really two paths forward. First is investing in alternative fuels. So taking the petroleum-based fuels off of our airplanes and putting in low carbon alternatives. And we've been doing that for 10 years. So we've been pushing into that space for a very long time. We've got some really great partners, and we continue to help scale that as a long-term solution. But secondarily, we announced an investment in a startup company that really focuses on carbon capture and sequestration. So literally consider it as a vacuum that sucks the greenhouse gas emissions out of the atmosphere around all of us and sticks it in the ground permanently in the bedrock so it can never come out. So that is really a way not only to address the greenhouse gas emissions from flying today, but also the greenhouse gas emissions from flying yesterday and the day before that. And so we really find it as an innovative, long-term, sustainable solution to help draw down the greenhouse gas emissions from flying. And to give it a little bit of context, flying is responsible for about 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So not too significant today, but quite honestly, Nestor, that's going to grow over time as other industries like road vehicles, they convert to electric, they're going to be a much smaller footprint, which is great. That is the kind of progress we need. So aviation's contributions are going to continue to increase. And the whole source of our greenhouse gas emissions is from the consumption of jet fuel. So that's why we've been looking at ways that we can really focus on solving the problem, replacing that petroleum-based, hydrocarbon-based jet fuel.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that fuel? Because I think that's one of the keys, as you mentioned, is being able to reduce fuel oil consumption. What do you replace that with, and what is the long-term viability of that? I understand that from a little bit of research that it's still a ways off in terms of its costs, and so there's that issue to deal with. Could you go into that a little bit?
You're absolutely correct, Nestor. So there is what we call sustainable aviation fuel. And essentially what that means is you're not using petroleum-based fuel. Instead, you're using organic matter to create that fuel. And that organic-based fuel, that sustainable aviation fuel, emits 80% less carbon when it's used on our airplanes. United has been investing in and using sustainable aviation fuels for a very long time. We had our first commercial flight in 2011 out of Los Angeles. We've been using it on a daily basis since 2016. And today we're really proud. United alone has more than 50% of the global commitments of sustainable aviation fuel. But for United, we've been doing this for 10 years. We've been spending money to purchase this fuel, which, to your point, Nestor, is up to 4 times the cost of conventional fuel. So it is expensive. That to me means it's not really viable long term until we bring that price down. But we've been in this marketplace for a very long time, and it is far, far, far less than 1% of the total supply of fuel that United needs to use, let alone aviation at large. So we have a real challenge staring us in the face around how do we scale the supply of sustainable aviation fuel such that it becomes cost effective and there's more supply. And really that's where collaborating with the producers, collaborating with other airlines, and most importantly, working with our government to get the policy incentives to help provide funding to enable this marketplace to grow and displace petroleum-based fuels. And we're really focused on that. We've been doing it for 10 years now, and we will continue to grow that space until one day we'll have more sustainable aviation fuel than we will have petroleum-based Jet A on our airplanes. That's my hope.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about what the government's role would be, and then not just the U.S. government, but if this were to become a global sort of initiative where other foreign governments also are involved in creating this maybe subsidy for the fuel that you need?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of an exciting time to think about what the role of policy could be. As we know, our incoming president-elect has indicated that we will be rejoining the Paris Agreement. So that is certainly a multilateral agreement that declares that we're going to combat climate change. So the role of policy could be pretty substantial. Some countries, some regions like the European Union, they've already stepped forward and they're looking at mandates. So a percentage of your fuel has to be low carbon sustainable aviation fuel instead of being all petroleum based conventional fuel. We see the kinds of incentives that really make a difference in the marketplace are those that really help producers fund the development of their production facilities, because as you can imagine, they're hundreds of billions of dollars. They're quite expensive. But there's ways for them to stand in so that they can, reinvest in this marketplace to drive alternative fuels forward so that we can scale and reduce the cost. United invested in a sustainable aviation fuel provider in 2015. This group is called Fulcrum Bioenergy. They are based in California today with the objective to expand. And what they actually do, Nestor, is they take the garbage out of your trash can and they convert that into low carbon conventional jet fuel or sustainable aviation fuel. So their whole vision is to take the waste streams that we produce today and that we don't really have a whole lot of land to store, and we turn that into low carbon sustainable aviation fuel for use on our flights. So the first of those facilities is actually going to be operational next year. And we're hoping to get jet fuel up and online in the next 2 to 3 years following that. So we're really excited about, but in that example, having the government come in and provide some incentives to support the construction and operation of that plant, the financing of that plant would be hugely valuable in accelerating the timeline for construction of that plant. Now, all that is withstanding the delays and all that caused by the pandemic, which I think we can all agree it's been a highly unusual year.
Yes, it has, absolutely. I just also wanted to ask, so obviously United is kind of leading the way in this, but have you gotten some buy-in from the other airlines, even foreign carriers? Is there an industry-wide consensus?
Absolutely, and I'm really thrilled about that. For a very long time in the sustainable fuel space, United domestically has really been leading. We do have counterparts internationally like KLM and Qantas and others that have been leaning in IAG for sure, in really addressing their sustainability objectives very clearly and in a committed manner. This year, we've seen within the domestic US that we've had American Airlines come on, JetBlue come on, Southwest and Delta have plans. So this is wonderful because the more that there are demand signals in the marketplace for willingness to purchase the sustainable fuel despite the price parity, which is very significant right now, the more we're going to have supply come online. So that's really great to see. But I do think in the sustainable fuel market, we seem to be almost coming to this tipping point where most airlines are understanding that we can no longer continue down the path of sort of our conventional operations. In the carbon capture space, we are the very first globally to invest in carbon capture and sequestration. So I do not believe there are any other airlines that have invested in any capacity in there. So we're the first of our kind. But I do hope that there are multiple airlines that join us because quite frankly, we are going to need investment in this new technology, and we're really excited to be at the forefront of that.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah, it sounds like scale is going to be one of the keys for the success of this. How How about for the consumer? What does this mean for me, for average Mr. Passenger? Is there any impact at all?
Absolutely. And, quite honestly, some of this change you're seeing happening now is because we're hearing it from our consumers. And I mean, both our individual passengers and leisure passengers, as well as our corporate customers that are saying, hey, it's time that we lean in and we start finding pathways forward to get to net zero and reduce the emissions from our travel. So we've been hearing loudly from our passengers that they really want to see us not just acknowledge our contribution, but do something about it. We have been offering a carbon offset program to our customers for about 10 years now. So if you go book your ticket, you actually have the option to go ahead and offset the emissions from your flying. We will be sharing, hopefully soon in the next couple of weeks, calculations so that you understand the carbon footprint related to all of your flight options. And you can take a look at that and be an educated purchaser. The more that we hear from our customers that they care about things like single-use plastics, all of those contribute to our environmental footprint and our contribution broadly. And those feedback mechanisms are really important, in particular to somebody like me that wants to hear them, so that we can really lean in and evolve the way that we bring our customers to the table so that they can be part of the solutions and not just a participant on the airplane as one of our passengers.
Yeah, and do you think the public knowledge about this program and public support is also going to be one of the keys?
I do, and I think some regions of the world, like the European Union, are far more advanced for a variety of reasons than others. I do think that it's going to become the norm. I mean, these last couple of years, we have not seen a whole lot of government engagement in this space, and yet there was still a ton of market momentum, corporate momentum that said, well, we just cannot shy away. I think now that we have an incoming administration that has clearly said that this is one of their priorities, that together with the individual consumer saying, I care, and corporate customers and corporate entities saying it's time, we're going to have sort of this perfect storm to really shift the marketplace towards cleaner solutions that allow us to really decarbonize in a long-term permanent manner. And I believe we can get there. I'm really excited about it because there's a lot of innovation out there. There is absolutely no scale yet, but we will get there. This is just the start of a journey, and this is really where we have an opportunity to really be respectful of future generations and allow them to enjoy the planet just as much as we have.
Yeah, and I think your colleague there, Sam Shinahara, has a nephew who would be very, very enthusiastic about this program, Dr. Austin Shelton. I'm not sure if you have ever met him, but yeah, he's very much involved in environmental issues here in Guam. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Let me turn to Sam now. United has also been involved in electrostatic sprayers to disinfect airport terminals. What is that, Sam?
Well, I mean, Nestor, it's a lot of things, but I mean, it really starts with our partnership with the Cleveland Clinic and the Clorox Company. And so, at the start of this pandemic, we tried to figure out how to make the airplanes safer than they already were for our boarding customers. And so we've been spraying these airplanes with a chemical that's known to kill the virus. And we've taken that step a little bit further. And now we're spraying, all of the high touch point areas within our airport facilities across the country and Guam as well. And so, at our ticket counter on a daily basis, after our peak check-in period, we have a cleaning crew that comes in and sprays all the high touch point areas for our customers. We're doing it at the gate holds as well. But it doesn't stop there, Nestor, because, our employees are interacting with these customers. They're also spending time behind the ticket counter in our break rooms, in our work areas. And so we're spraying those areas as well. So, it's pretty consistent product, that really does kind of go out of its way to find the virus and kill it. And so, whether it's a chair in the gate hole, our service machines at the ticket counter, the stanchions, just anything you might come into contact with, I can tell you that the airport experience today is a much more virus-friendly or unfriendly virus place to be for sure. So, you know, I mean, it's we're going out of our way to make it safe and comfortable for everyone who passes through.
Yeah, and it's kind of began with the sanitization of the airplane itself, the cabin.
Sure, for sure. I mean, that's I mean, we've been using the same product on board, and Nestor, I'm glad you brought that up again, because not only are we spraying in between every flight, but, you know, I mean, every flight that has significant ground time, we're also spraying an additional product. It's an antimicrobial product that kind of coats everything, and basically think about it as you know, kind of spikes, you know, kind of across all of the different furniture that would be on the airplane, and as the virus lands on it, it's immediately killed. So it's a great thing. And maybe Lauren knows a little bit more about that, can speak to the details on that. But, you know, I mean, it's just been a great thing, and you know, I mean, just all of the research that we've done, you know, kind of tells us that, you know, boarding an airplane is really a safe place to be. You know, on top of the air filtration and the extra cleaning, you know, and the antimicrobial sprays that we're putting on the airplane, you know, I mean, those are manifesting in amazing customer comments, and I think that that's what's really making a difference. You know, I mean, we can point to science that says that we're doing some great things, but we can also point to the customer confidence that we're seeing across you know, across the globe and around the customer base. We're getting amazing. I mean, customers have said that they've never been on a cleaner airplane. You know, I mean, it's a great thing. And post-pandemic, we're going to keep up a bunch of these things because they're yielding great reactions, and quite frankly, they're just great things to do.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Speaking of post-pandemic, can you speak to how important safety and disinfection and sanitization is going to be for the traveling public and your industry?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think Nestor is going to be with us for a long time. You know, at United Airlines, safety is the first and foremost thing that we talk about every day. We start every meeting with a safety briefing. We start every shift with a safety briefing. You know, I mean, so it's a high-level focus with us, and we've taken it up a notch as well. And so, you know, not only do we start with a safety briefing, you know, we're making specific inquiries of our employees to make sure that everyone's got the right PPE before they step into the workplace and before they interact with our customer base. And so, you know, small things like that are really making a difference. You know, there's a couple weird things we've done, and I don't know if you can see it, but I got this bottle of hand sanitizer. You can't see it really well because of my virtual background, but this bottle of hand sanitizer was bottled by a brewing company for us. You know, United extended an invitation to our partners to ask them for some help in making sure that, you know, our employees and our customers have access to much needed stuff that were scarce on the shelves of the grocery stores for sure. And so, you know, I mean, we've got our own supply of hand sanitizer. You know, I mean, and I think these things are just going to be commonplace for us. You know, I mean, whether it's you know, plexiglass barriers across the break rooms, or, you know, at our ticket counters. You know, I think these things are going to stay with us for a long time.
All right. You know, I ask you this every time I see you, but give me your guess when we're going to see some semblance of normalization of flights, particularly from our source tourist markets.
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, we got to get our act together on Guam, right? And I think, you know, administering the vaccines is certainly going to help us. So, I mean, we're optimistic that, you know, kind of at the tail end of the first quarter on our end, we're going to start to see some things happen, right? And so, you know, I mean, I think unfortunately, though, you know, in our source markets, what's happening on Guam, they know very, very well. And, you know, I mean, Guam's been in a bad place for the last couple of months. We're climbing out of that hole. And I think we need to work on making sure that we continue to be relevant in the source market. So we need to find a way to kind of tell our consumer base all of the good things that are happening here, that the infection rate's coming down, the vaccines are starting to happen, hospitalizations are declining. Guam is a safe place. You know, our hotels, our airport, you know, kind of all of the optional tours on Guam are ready to go. And those things need to happen. So, I really think that, it's going to take a little bit of time. I don't want to be the guy who has the rose-colored glasses on, but I don't want to be the doom and gloom guy as well. So, I think everyone needs to band together. GVB, the airport, GHRA, the entire visitor industry needs to work together. And our friends at the government of Guam certainly need to, toe the line as well. We need to start the planning now to receive the first visitors. As I told Sabrina and Andy yesterday, the first few tourists into Guam are going to make the biggest, they're going to be the most important visitors to Guam, because we need to make a big impression on them, because they need to take that impression and tell their story, their experience on the island of Guam back to our consumer base in Japan, in Taiwan, and Korea. So, all of those are hugely important things, and good things are happening. In Taiwan, they have a great handle on the virus. In Korea, the exposure hasn't been too significant. In Japan, there's a little bit of an uptick, but I think they're generally pretty safe places. And when they understand Guam is a safe place, hopefully we can, have some reciprocity and free travel back and forth.
All right, thank you. I want to give the last word to Lauren, if she could just maybe summarize this whole 100% green by 2050 program. If you could sum up that in one paragraph for the viewers out there, what would you tell them?
Well, I think Sam did a really great job teeing up sort of United's vision around innovation and embracing all of this change that happened this year, whether it's supporting that a return to service and rebounding from the pandemic, to leaning into sustainability. And United is really thrilled to pledge 100% green by 2050 by reducing all of our carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions to zero in 2050. And this is really important to us because we have a responsibility to work across the globe in every region, everywhere, on behalf of every traveler everywhere, to mitigate climate change, just like we're working very hard to mitigate the pandemic so that we can get back to life as we've known it before. We want to preserve that. We want to maintain that today and for future generations. And we're thrilled to be here to talk to you about that today, Nestor.
Thank you. Well said. Lauren Riley is the Managing Director for Global Environment Affairs and Sustainability for United Airlines. And of course, Sam Shinohara, Managing Director of Airport Operations for Asia Pacific, our guest this week. Thank you so much. Fascinating stuff. Really enjoyed that. I'm Nestor Licanto. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next week on In Full Zoom.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.